And there's a carnival-like atmosphere here tonight. The crowd is gathered and, well, you can feel it. There's an air of expectancy.
Everybody with me drunk as fuck, break it down and roll it up. Everybody with me drunk as fuck, break it down and roll it up. Everybody with me drunk as fuck, break it down and roll it up. Everybody with me drunk as fuck, break it down and roll it up. Everybody with me drunk as fuck, break it down and roll it up. Everybody with me drunk as fuck, break it down and roll it up. Everybody with me drunk as fuck.
All right, well, welcome back to another installment of Stimpy'S Blacktop Bbq. This week we're going to be having porchetta. It's a pork roast, which I've done lots of times, lots of ways, and it's going to be cooked on a charcoal grill, which is of course my favorite way to cook meat. So I've just gotten back from the market and picked up my fresh vegetables that I need for this dish. Pull those out. I've got here, this is known as anise or fennel, something that not too many of my friends are very familiar with this, but it's a great herb slash vegetable. You can use it in a few different ways. I'll talk a little bit about that. Next we've got just a good bunch of flat leaf parsley and some cilantro. I got these from Kroger, which is good local market, carries lots of local produce. These are all organic Michigan products.
Kroger, not a paid supporter of the Blacktop Bbq show, but still a good little market with organic Michigan vegetables and products.
This is from my garden. This is rosemary. Would have had parsley from my garden had it not been for a gardening mishap, but it's another story. And then lemon and lime, which I'll only be using the rind from today. So move these over to the sink, get these cleaned up. From the fennel, we're just going to be using the greens. So some of these are in a little bit of rough shape. I'm going to chop off all the parts that look less than desirable, and I need about 2 tablespoons or a little bit more of the best of the greens chopped up. And so I'll go ahead and get started on Just that. One note on the fennel bulb, I won't be throwing this away. This is actually excellent, either braised or raw. Raw goes great in the salad, has kind of a faint licorice flavor, nice and crunchy. Braised, you lose most of the licorice flavor, still has a nice overall flavor and texture. Typically it would be braised with some butter and Parmesan cheese. It's kind of just a treat at that point, but still really good either way. I prefer it raw. Next up, take some of this parsley, and I just need a bit of this too, so I'm just going to rip off a good little chunk here. The rest I'll use tomorrow to make the salsa verde that is going to be served with the porchetta. And then some cilantro. I spent some time online reading about it. You may want to know why or how I heard about it. Actually, a friend of mine from school suggested it. Fellow hockey player. And he works at a meat market over in Canada, and their specialty is porchetta. So that got me interested. We talked about it a little bit. It sounded like something I would enjoy doing. And I looked into buying pre-done porchetta from them. Well, not pre-cooked, but ready to cook. But I wasn't sure about the legality of bringing raw pork over the border, so I figured it would be fine to do my own. Alright, so these are the herbs that are going inside the roast. The roast is kind of a roll that we will tie up and then cook first slowly and then finally, to get a nice char on the skin, we'll use high heat at the end, which will actually be done on site. The slow cooking at around 275 degrees for 5 hours, but the original porchetta is done throughout Italy on a spit over a wood fire. Typically whole hog, which isn't practical for this kind of a cookout, and probably doesn't give the best results. Well, maybe I should take that back. I don't want to get any hate now from Italians. But generally speaking, it's difficult to cook a whole animal because there's different cuts of meat that require very different cooking temperatures. So you can wind up in trouble with undercooked or overcooked meat. You usually wind up overcooking everything to compensate for that. But I've decided to go with a couple of cuts that require similar cooking temperatures. So now I'm just going to find my knife and get to chopping this up. This is the herb portion. We're also going to be doing a salt rub portion, and for that I've got fennel seed, got a little bit of ginger powder that I'm going to put in there, some black pepper, and some coriander seed, and of course some good old-fashioned salt. I will toast those seeds up a little bit before I grind them, just to get them ready to release maximum flavor into the meat. And then this is going to all get assembled and put in the fridge for about a day and a half. It's Friday at 1:45, and I'll start cooking this Sunday morning at around 8 a.m. Okay, so just going to take the first layer of skin off this lemon. Don't want to go too deep into the pith. Won't actually be using any of the lemon juice today, but when I make the dressing that's going to go on the sandwich tomorrow, I'll probably make it tomorrow, then I'll be using the juice of this lemon, so I'll just set that aside, and same thing with the lime. Okay, that's it for the fresh ingredients. So I'm going to grab a bowl onto the dry rub. I'm just going to assemble the ingredients here in a bowl. Set that aside. Actually, we'll start with, I'm going to grab a pan, and into the pan I'm going to put the these are coriander seeds. So to estimate 2 teaspoons, I'm going to go with 1 tablespoon and a little bit more of the whole seed. Now the fennel is a little bit more compact in seed form, so I don't think I want to go, and I need a similar amount ground, so I'm going to go a little bit shy of the tablespoon on this one. Alright, so that's that. Now it also calls for black pepper, but I don't like to toast black pepper. Kind of gets a funky taste, a little acrid. But these, just kind of slightly toast them, and I mostly go by scent. So when it smells perfect, I'll pull it off. But you know, not too much. You know, just a little bit of you're not really even trying to brown them so much. It's just open them up a little bit, get the oils moving, and that'll help them absorb into the meat. So, black pepper, I'm going to kind of eyeball that. Looks about right. And once I have all those toasted up, I'm going to give them a quick grind and then mix them with a fair amount of salt. Actually prefer a coarser salt for this application than I do the fine salt, so I'm going to switch salts on you. The coarser salt makes it a little easier to gauge how much salt you're using when you're doing it by eye, which I will be doing. Pretty good. That will work. Alright. And let's doesn't have to be real fine. In fact, some coarse little bits will kind of add some homemade character to the final product. But I do want to get them at least all cracked so that they release as much of their oils as possible into the meat while it's cooking, and to a degree while it's sitting in the fridge waiting to be cooked. A little further. It smells like sausage. That's quite a bit better. Still a few whole ones, but will not be an issue. I like a little bit of ginger on my pork. I think it goes really well with the smoky flavor, so I'm just gonna throw in a bit, and it'll be our little secret. 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. I did a full loin with a belly that they said was around 8 pounds. Mine's around 10. So here's a tablespoon, and I'm going to go another little bit. And these are the two things that are going to go inside the roast. And so now it's time to prepare the roast.
Stimpy pulls out his meat next on Blacktop Bbq. But first,
to the FT Canucks. Oh, and a big hit there at center ice.
Stimpy's Blacktop Bbq presents Youth and Light by Dr. Marvelous Veach.
Okay, this kid, he really likes this girl. This kid, he really likes this girl. So he wants to ask her out for a date, but he's really, really nervous. So he says to her, he goes, would you like to go to the movies? She goes, yeah, I like to go to the movies, but if we go to the movies, you gotta come in and you gotta be introduced to my mom and dad, or I can't go to the movies. He says, okay, I'll come over, I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock and you can introduce me to your mom and dad. So the kid goes over to the girl's house to take her to the movies, and there's the dad. The dad's reading the paper, real strict looking, mean looking guy. So the kid sits down and he's so nervous he gets stomach aches and he feels like he's got a poop bad. But all of a sudden, man, he thinks, well, maybe it's just a fart. And all of a sudden he sees this dog, so he calls the dog over by him and he pets the dog. The mean dad is reading the paper. So he goes, well, if I let a little bit of gas out, maybe the old guy will think it's the dog. So he lets a little bit of this fart out. It's one of them silent hot ones. It starts to stink terrible in the front room. The guy puts down the paper and he goes, Duke! So the kid goes, whew, he thinks it's the dog. Thank goodness. He goes, I'll let a little more out since he thinks it's the dog. So he lets a little more out to get rid of that stomach ache. And all of a sudden the guy puts down the paper and he goes, Duke! So the kid goes, oh my gosh, he thinks it's the dog. I gotta let all this fart out and get rid of this stomach ache. So he lets out all this fart and it smells like shit in this guy's front room. And the guy puts down the paper and he goes, Duke! Get away from that kid before he shits on you! Okay, that's as clean as I can get. That's as clean as I can get. I'll tell you one more, but you can't tell your ma this one. You're with the hockey guys. You're with the hockey guys. Don't worry about it. Hockey guys tell jokes.
Oh, you should have heard what Benny heard. Wow.
This Indian.
Benny's a little older.
This Indian. One night, this Indian is wandering. He comes out and his father, the chief, is sitting by the fire and he goes, Father, he goes, how did you name your children?
This is all on tape.
So the chief goes, well, the night your older brother was born, I stepped outside the teepee and I seen a deer running. So I named your brother running deer.
Are you paying attention?
He goes, the night that your sister was born, I stepped out of the teepee. I looked into the sky and there was this bright moon. So I named your sister Bright Moon. Why do you ask? Two dogs screwing. Okay, you better go sit by your dad now.
Everybody is just on their feet screaming, kill, kill, kill! This is hunting!
From the meats. Loin. And belly. I'll give you the actual weights. My loin is, or my belly rather, did they give me a total? Yeah, 12.67 pounds. And my loin I'm using is 8.35 pounds. Alright, so I'm going to open these up over the sink just because there's some juices in there. I'm not really going to give them a rinse. I don't think there's really any need for that. These are fresh from the packer, so they should be pretty clean. And then I'll show you the general idea. So let me get these opened up. Alright, so here we go. Here are the two pieces of meat. And the loin, which has a fair bit of fat on it, most of which will render off during the slow cooking process. And this is going to get rolled up and then tied with butcher string. Now, ideally I'd like it to close. And so this will come close to closing at least. So there's a little bit more here than I need on this loin. And so I will trim it down a little bit, and I'll find a good use for the part that I trim off. But in the end, if there's a bit of a gap at the bottom, that will be fine. It'll probably help the smoke penetrate in there a little bit more anyways, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. What I am going to do, because I want to get these ingredients that I just prepared as deeply into the meat as possible, so I am going to butterfly the loin, which is just a fancy word for slit it most of the way, not all the way through, because I want to keep as much intact as possible, which will help with the slicing later. But let me first take a cut. I'm going to take off about a fifth of it. Alright, so this, just take another quick peek at what I got. A little bit gold. Yeah, that'll be alright. Tuck that in, tie it up. That'll look pretty good. Now, incidentally, this is longer than my grill. My grill is about as wide as this board, a little less. So I'm going to cut this in half, and that'll let me do the whole thing at one time. Alright, so to butterfly this, doesn't really matter where I start. I'm going to start on this end. I'm just going to cut about 3/4 of the way through. Careful not to cut too far. Open it up, and voila. There we go. Okay. Now, this is ready. So I'm going to take my dry ingredients first. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle them around, rub them in, do both sides. Now the fat cap is going to keep most of this from actually penetrating, so I don't need as much there. Add this out of the way, and get to here. I'm going to reserve a little bit of this for the outside too. Actually, no, I'm not. Outside is going to get just smoked anyways. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Okay. Now, one thing I should have done before I started, but it'll be alright, is I want to score the back. Not too deeply, but I want to penetrate the skin inches all the way. Now, fresh herbs. And I'm just going to kind of toss this around a little bit and then sprinkle these on. And the rest of what I use. That looks good. Okay. Alright, so the last step is assembly. Put this all together, you need some butcher string. So I got a little bit here. Hopefully, it'll be enough. I'll make it work. I'm going to start by tying a loop in the middle, which I'm going to wrap around the middle, and then I'll tie around there towards the ends. For that, I'm going to slide over one end. So I'm rolling it up, and I'm going to get it tight as I can, with only two hands. This might be an operation that works better with a willing aid, but I should be able to work with this. Alright, go around this, like so, up it towards the middle, and go like that. Alright. Now, I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to do this, but okay.
Next, Stimpy prepares a special sauce on Stimpy's Blacktop Bbq.
Here's a sauce that I made this weekend. This is a salsa verde. It's cilantro, basil, lemon, olive oil, garlic, fennel seed, coriander. Good stuff.
So the sandwiches are just going to be the roasted meat, this sauce, and then some Dijon mustard for those that want it. The salsa verde is just basically an herbed lemon and oil sauce similar to a dressing, like a salad dressing, only the herb content is higher than you would have in a typical salad dressing. So anyways, I'm juicing up some lemons. I'm actually going to zest one of these lemons, add that to the mix, and while I'm doing that, there's some dry herb, or some dry seeds back there toasting. They're going in here as well. So just get the zest off of this. So the zest of one lemon, juice from 2 lemons, 2 cloves of garlic, good couple bunches of fresh herbs, and a cup of olive oil, some salt, and that is pretty much the ticket. That's good. You can hear my toasted seeds are getting close. Keep an ear on those. Here's the lime from yesterday. Nice juicy lime. Alright, those seeds are done. So, toasted up the seeds just like yesterday. These are going to get ground up before I put them in the processor with the rest of the stuff, just so that they're a little easier to grind or to chop. That's it. Okay. Then to that I'm going to add some herbs from the garden. This is lemon basil, and then this is sweet basil or Genovese basil. And we'll just dump in the juice from 2 lemons and a lime. Next I've got this dried chipotle pepper. This is chipotle is just a smoked jalapeno. This is something I buy, keep on hand. I've got actually several varieties of dried, often smoked peppers that I use in all kinds of things. And these sandwiches, since these are being made with smoked meats, you probably won't even pick up the smoke, just the heat from these peppers, but it really can't hurt. So, that goes in. Smash up this garlic, give it a quick little coarse chop. And then, this is a cup of extra virgin olive oil with a good amount of salt, about a generous teaspoon and a half. More or less, we'll adjust that. Alright. Okay, so everything is in here in the blender, and now we're just going to chop this up, puree it into a nice smooth sauce. Alright, so this is just going to go into a jar and into the fridge, and that'll be really good tomorrow.
Stimpy scores at the rink with his porchetta. Next on Blacktop Bbq.
Okay, so it's Sunday morning. I'm getting ready to put the porchetta on the grill, and I just wanted to show quickly my grill setup. This is a setup known as a snake. So I've got all the charcoal arranged around the outside of the grill, and I'll be lighting this end right here, and it'll slowly burn around over the next several hours. On a day like today, where I'm doing a nice thick roast, see those bottom vents, I'm going to keep those completely open. When I do ribs, I would generally have that more like about half to 3/4 open, depending on the wind conditions. But today, calm day, and I want to burn through this relatively quickly, about 4.5 hours. I'll leave those wide open, and then here's my starter coals. I've just inverted the chimney, and I'm starting up about 15-20 coals. Get those nice and hot, and when those are red hot, I will arrange them right at this end of the snake and put the meat on, and then the lid will stay closed with the top vents pretty much half closed the whole day. I'll just periodically check the temperature on the meat and the temperature of the grill. Okay, one last thing before I actually start the grill. I have in here a pan to catch the drippings. It's actually 2 pans, one with about 3 cups of water, and then the pan for the drippings themselves. And this serves kind of 2 purposes. One, I want to save the drippings to make potatoes in later, but secondly, the water in the bottom pan will add moisture to the grill area, which will help keep the meat nice and moist and prevent a runaway temperature if something got crazy with these coals, but that really shouldn't happen. So that's that. I'm gonna throw these nice hot grill coals on the one end and get the meat on the grill, and 5 hours later we should be looking pretty good.
At the rink.
What you got going today? Today we are doing porchetta. And if you watch the earlier tape, you know exactly what porchetta is, but it's pork belly wrapping around a pork loin, stuffed with herbs and spices, and smoked for 6.5 hours. And now we're just putting a crust on it for the crackling. And we're heating up some potatoes that, of course, have been cooked in pork fat. Well, right now we're just putting a crust on it, so they're only going to cook for another 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to slice it up and stuff the bread, make some sandwiches out of it. But a little bit of cheese, and then smoke it yourself. Works out pretty nice.
So what is it there?
It's pork loin and
Are you pitching Tuesday?
wrapped in pork belly.
King of the Hill on Tuesday?
It's at 17 in Garfield.
Gonna have a big crowd. We're all coming to watch.
All right, guys, come on
King of the Hill
up.
on Tuesday.
Yeah, he'll be on the mountain.
Tuesday? I don't think I got anything going.
Play Thursday too, or just Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Here you go. Aaron.
Let me know if
There's
there's
the first one. Give me the slide. Just turn around there. No, I just went because we were between games.
All right, so next week is dogs and conies, and or burgers and conies, and that's it for this week of Blacktop Bbq.
Oh, you're thinking it's coming? Yeah, well, when it does. Oh, that's looking nasty.
Man, Eric, that's what I'm talking about, man. You're like...
That Money Shot presentation brought to you by Detroit City Production Company. Squeal like a pig, squeal like a pig. Ha 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 ha.